So we'll begin. Greetings to all. We thank you for joining us today. This is a special week within CHRIE, our CHRIE Federation should have had their conference this week. So due to COVID-19, of course, that conference has been postponed, but we are really thrilled to be able to offer this webinar during this particular time. So the other thing that I just want to mention to you as CHRIE members is our new values statement, and it includes the following. We believe in knowledge, the spirit of hospitality, sharing and collaboration, and inclusivity. So today's webinar really allows us to celebrate all four of those values, and we are extremely excited to host our diversity and inclusion partners from the Castell Project. We thank you so much to Peggy, Lon, and Fern for being with us today and for all of your amazing work that you're doing. And thank you, Donna Quadri-Filiti, for organizing this session. CHRIE is grateful to all of you for providing this for us today. So with that, Donna, I turn this over to you.
Well, thank you, Joy, and hopefully my slides will cooperate. I might have to take a moment while I talk about a few housekeeping rules today to unshare and say hi to everybody. This is a little different today. We are getting expert in Zoom University, many of us, or Zoom business meeting, certificates or degrees. But one of the things that we wanted to do today is after our presentation, when we have Q&A, you can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand under the participant list. We wanted to have this be engaging, particularly at the end of the session. So in that regard, while this is definitely Zoom, it's not in the webinar format today. So with that and with your patience, I am doing both moderating and managing our webinar today. So thank you all for understanding. We all go through this in class every week, right? So appreciate that. I also really want to say appreciate very much so. And here is this deck. I'm going to start over. And I have to tell you, kudos to Joy, to also Nick Thomas, who, when we brought the Castell idea to him for an education session, really had the vision to put it in a bigger context of an ongoing conversation with us as educators about how we can do what we do and help move the needle in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So thank you, I appreciate that. And without further ado, I mean, really again, echoing what Joy said, thank you to Peggy, Fern, and Lan. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing. I feel privileged to work on the Castell College committee and contribute far less than all of you, but really appreciate what you're doing for us. And on behalf of all of CHRIE and our educators in hospitality and the broader tourism sector, your leadership in stepping up into this industry urgent issue is remarkable. We thank you, and we also thank you for being our partner. So there are really two things we're going to talk about today. Primarily, we're going to focus on Castell College, and as I said, we want to have a good engagement at the end. But I also want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the Castell project itself. And I have fortunately known Peggy for a few decades now, and I've had the chance to have conversations around this throughout those. And Peggy, your title speaks for itself in terms of the chair as a Castell Project Board, but I know you to be not only a successful consultant, but hotel owner, member of ISHC, and award winner in many rights yourself. But your hotel career, as deep as it is, share with us how you got to found the Castell Project and a little bit of your background and your experience that brought us here today.
Well, let me try to blend that together. I'm delighted to be chair of the Castell Project Board. It's been incredibly rewarding. And I know doing this kind of work for your students is as equally rewarding for you. So I was one of those kids bouncing around universities. I had been to 6 by the time I decided that tending bar wasn't my ultimate career, and went back to Michigan State University's School of Hospitality. So the wonderful thing about going to hotel school was that it made so much sense to me. I come from an academic family. My parents are both biology professors, and I was not destined to be a biologist, even if it was the family business. But business, and particularly the hospitality business, was just a great fit, and it felt wonderful to be able to explore that through a hospitality program. I learned so much in aggregate, both from the 6 schools and particularly from the program at Michigan State. But I remember out of all of that, one class on one day in school when Ray Schmidgall had a guest speaker. She was blonde. She had a pink knit dress. She was drop dead gorgeous. Okay. She owned her own design business. She was about to get married. She had agency. She had decided how she was going to live her life, and she was independent, and she expanded my worldview. I would never be blonde. Decided I would never wear pink. I did not want to be design, and I did not want to get married. But this woman opened my eyes, just seeing her, to the possibilities that could exist for a woman that would take control of her own future. So as you teach, so much of what you do becomes the fabric of your students' lives. But sometimes your guest speakers are just that little decoration that sticks, that really opens hearts and minds. And I hope as we get to talking about Castell at college, this will resonate with you.
Well, Peggy, I will tell you, all of us in CHRIE, all of the family of CHRIE can appreciate any story that Ray is mentioned in. He has been a momentous figure in our association as well. So you had that moment in college, and then you went out and had this successful career.
Right. So let me frame my career for you. My first career, I became a partner with PKF. So it was me and 140 men. Then I built a national consulting firm called the Highland Group. 99.8% of my clients were men. For my third round, I started buying and owning hotels. I was a licensee of Choice and of Hilton. I was on franchise advisory councils, and I was surrounded by the men who also own hotels. I was one of the founders of the ISHC, and I've chaired a couple of H&LA committees among the wonderful leaders in this industry who are almost all men. And I have a husband and 2 sons. So let me say that my career is possible because the men surrounding me have been willing to work with me and promote me and encourage me and create opportunities with me. But when I go to investment conferences, and from the very first investment conference to last year, I still see young women following men around, a few senior women, and very few in the middle. So from 67% of your students, women, we dropped to 5% of CEOs. For Black women, even to get to EVP, the odds are 1 to 198. And then it's almost exclusively in HR. So this came into focus at a Hunter Conference Advisory Board. This is the formation story of Castell Project. We were going around the table talking about what's critical to the industry, and each person, it was supply, economy. And I said, women in leadership in this industry. And every subsequent speaker said their company had solved this women problem, and it was supply and the economy. And at the end of the meeting, every woman in the room came up to me and said, it isn't solved at all. And we formed the Castell Project.
And you had your first cohort, Peggy, I think you had your first cohort graduate when?
2017.
Wow, well, congratulations. Those of us who know what it's like to take a cohort through any credential, we know that that's a momentous occasion. And I know that there was an inspiration around that first cohort. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what your learnings were from the project. And the project might have applications to us as we mentor our alumni.
So it became blindingly obvious to me as I started doing this work that I had really strong biases against women, which is a little problematic if you're the chair of an organization like the Castell Project. And I mean, biases are part of being human. We've all been hearing a lot about it over the last couple of years, but not looking at our own biases. Like, I kind of knew I had biases, but I'd never really faced them down, because recognizing them is politically incorrect. It's dangerous sometimes to our status. It undermines our self-perception, but it's a problem. So I have biases, you have biases, your students have biases. Yep. Women and minority students often have biases against themselves. It feeds a lack of confidence and a lack of self-esteem. So I wanted to bring this up because Castell Project has done a lot of good changing the conversation in the industry, but it's also done a lot of good in saying, okay, let's expose this. Let's talk about it. And we publish statistics so that leaders can actually see the problem. So there's a basis of discussion. The reports are free, a free download at castellproject.org. And
Peggy, let me share that slide that with everybody that you shared with us that gives a highlight of some of those statistics. You know, we are scholars as well, and so we appreciate any data. They're always helpful in telling the story. And I also want to take a real quick moment and say thank you for being so generous of spirit to share that, to be so honest and transparent, because we really can only change when we acknowledge what holds us back. And that's really brave. You continue to role model bravery, so thank you. But you did talk about these notes, and I think that's an important point to interject for you here.
So if we want to change the industry, we need a common basis for discussion, and the statistics are part of that. We also need to really target what it takes to move women into leadership so they can become the role models for your students as they come up. And as we started this, we put together the leadership development program that Donna mentioned, figuring that if we could bring 250 women through the program and really elevate them in leadership, 250, it's so few, but there are so few of us that it doesn't take that many to really change the numbers. We could make real progress. We are working with 110 now. We're on our way to that goal, and it makes a difference. Every one that moves up makes it possible for others to come behind them and to be comfortable with the change. We also put women on the podium because women on the podium inspire those who follow. And I actually think having women in the classroom, there are so many more professors, including Donna here, in our classrooms who are women than there were when I was there. It lets women know what's possible.
And we have a great cross-section today from our colleagues who are on this call. I hope, though, Peggy, and this is something that I know we can highlight here, is it takes all of us, right? It takes women examples, but it takes the Ray Smid gals to invite women like yourself also into the classroom. It takes both of us for sure.
It absolutely does. My career wouldn't happen if my partners hadn't elected me, if my clients hadn't hired me, if my professors hadn't encouraged me. So yes, absolutely, it takes men and women together, and the industry's been truly welcoming to this initiative. So we're now launching an initiative to enable hotel ownership for women and underserved minorities, because leadership in our industry often has an entrepreneurial base. So that's been an exciting extension for Castell Project. But I think one of the most remarkable things that's come out of Castell Project has been this program called Castell College. It's headed up by 3 incredible women, Fern Cantor, Heather Jacobs, and Lan Elliott. And I'm delighted to have Fern and Lan on this presentation today to tell you about it.
Well, that's perfect. Thank you, Peggy. So Lan and Fern, you know, I know Peggy is an inspiration, but so are the two of you. If I could start with you, Fern, and just ask a little bit to give a brief bio about how you got to where you are, and also why you're so passionate about leading in this extension of the Castell Project, Castell at College.
Thank you, Donna. So I am Fern Cantor. I am currently the Managing Director and Executive Vice President of CHRIE, an asset management and investment advisory firm based in Boston and in Phoenix. We currently asset manage about 50 hotels. We have 15,000 rooms under asset management. It's all located in the United States. But I got to tell you, these days I spend most of my time on Castell College.
Thank you.
I've been in the hospitality industry for nearly 40 years. The first 20 years were with a variety of consulting firms, Laventhal and Horwath, Horwath Landauer, Arthur Anderson, and PwC, along with my own consulting firm. And I worked with hotel companies and investors on projects in the Caribbean, Central, and South America. In 2000, I was asked to join a small group of men to form CHM to act as owners' representatives for investors of hotels in the United States. And then later on, about 5 years ago, we merged with Warnick and Company. So why Castell College? Why am I so passionate? I think that there's a lot of reasons, but early in my career, I attended large conferences like Peggy, and there would be 2,000 attendees like at NYU and about 20 women. I remember being so intimidated walking into that Sunday night cocktail hour with so many black suited men and me. The women in the room were memorable, but the sea of suits was absolutely foreboding. I remember I would be collecting business cards, and then after speaking with a couple of people, I would quickly go in the corner and write down some notes on the backs of these cards so I could remember who these men were. And I wish in those days that I would have had someone, a mentor or even a role model that would have helped me or guided me through some of the uncomfortable situations that I had been in. I remember my first evaluation at my first job. I was told to wear more dresses and more makeup. And the next job that I had, I was told to wear more suits and less makeup. You know, it's just, the message wasn't clear, and I had trouble navigating.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call when you get that kind of advice, rather than, you know, pay more attention to detail on this section of your report. Yeah, it can be motivating, Fern.
So, you know, I'm a true believer in being whatever it is that you can be. That's what I was taught growing up. In my family, I didn't I don't remember roles being men's roles and women's roles. I was telling a story just yesterday that my father was a contractor, and I used to go out in jobs with him. I was his assistant. I was pulling nails. I was, hanging sheetrock. It didn't occur to me that that wasn't a woman's job. So I went to college. I got a master's degree. I entered the workforce, and during those first 10 years, I made less money than my counterparts. My promotions came slower. I worked twice as hard when I got pregnant and gave birth. So no one would look at me and say, oh, she's not as committed now because she's also a mom. It never occurred to me that dads had kids too.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're doing now, Fern, is helping us as educators and students to have it occur to them earlier than it did for you. And so we can move the needle, as they say.
Yeah.
And we're gonna, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, you saw the statistics. 67% of the hospitality school graduates are women, yet women CEOs make up only 5%. Women make up more than half the population in the United States. They have the ability to contribute significantly to our country's economy. They make more than half the buying decisions for families. Why are we still talking about gender equality? So, and what I think is really important is that this program is not only for the women in the room. Men in the industry will either be working for a woman, beside a woman, or managing one. If they're not advocating, like Peggy said, if they're not advocating, they're hurting women. And those women could be their mothers or their sisters or their wives or their daughters.
Good point. And they also are not doing anything to help the, profitability and success of their business.
Right.
And with that, I want to talk to Lan a little bit about how you became involved to support and your partnership with Fern and Peggy in Castell College. What brought you to the project?
Well, it's interesting. It's a lot of the same things that Peggy and Fern have talked about. I have spent most of my career on the ownership side of the business. I'm currently the co-founder and owner of a company that invests in hotels. And I came up through the consulting side when I graduated from school. And then I joined Host as in the acquisitions and dispositions department. And it wasn't really until, I'd gone through school and I'd gone through consulting, and I hadn't really thought about the fact that there were more men than women in the industry. But it's when you get to that point in your career where you kind of feel like, I'm not continuing to progress. And then you kind of look around and you realize, oh, the other guys at my level are playing golf with the CEO. They're doing all these other things, and I tried to play golf. I just can't. There's nothing I want to do for 4 hours. It's lovely outside, but come on. I got other things to do. I kind of felt, it was the first time I kind of felt, that there was this barrier. And I went through the same thing. It's funny you mentioned NYU, because that for me, I spent years trying to be senior enough to finally get invited to go to this NYU conference. When I finally get there, it's a sea of suits. Now I wear a red dress just to make sure that I'm not going to be like blending in with the other men in the dark suits. But but back then,
you're so right. It's amazing. The words glass ceiling has gone out of fashion recently, but it doesn't mean that it isn't still part of the real estate. It's still a battle. So you're helping battle it.
Yeah, I had no idea when I was coming up in my career. I had no role models. There were women out in the industry. There were the women like Fern and Peggy who were carving the path. But I either didn't know them, or if I did know of them, I had no idea how to approach them, right? And so there were just a lot of ways I felt very isolated. And so now that I, am more in control of my destiny with my own company and my time. I reached out to Peggy and I said, I'm going to be leaving IHG soon, and I think I'm going to have some time, and I really want to do something to help pave the path for women, who are coming up in the industry now, and to help advance them in a way and give them the tools and resources that I didn't have when I was coming up in the industry. And so that's really been, this has really been a passion project for me, this year.
So that is a perfect segue to talking about how the project extension of Castell College, what the program looks like, what we can bring, and how we can partner with you to start that off. You put a list of you're the scheduling guru of Castell College. So maybe I'll talk a little bit to Fern about what's involved in putting together the program, and Lan will talk about how you engage your alumni and then schedule a time. So Fern, talk a little bit about the content that that the project and Castell College brings to our partners here, our educators on the webinar today.
So the Castell College program started as an in-person program. It was 4 panelists, 1 moderator, 2.5 hours. With COVID as our new reality, we pivoted and we went virtual. This was a blessing in disguise, as our panelist pool was no longer restricted by location. And as a result, we went from 15 schools last calendar year to over 20 scheduled for this fall semester. In large part, it was Lan's efforts to get us there. What the program is we invite 4 panelists, 3 to 4 panelists and a moderator. These are executive women that are kind of like the 3 of us on the panel, probably a little bit younger. And they tell stories. They tell stories of their careers. They provide challenges.
They provide pathways. They provide different scenarios to their leadership success.
Right.
And our committee has really worked to help give some guidance to those folks, right?
Yes. So what we do is we put these women up front so so the women in the classroom could see female role models in high-level positions. They understand that they're not alone. Give them confidence when they're facing adversity, and they also learn about new career paths in hospitality.
And they learn from folks like you and Lan, who have come up against those microaggressions, or not so micro, and you've persevered and gone through them and not let it derail them.
Yes.
And so, we are, all of us are works in progress, and, allowing our young men and women to see that they can evolve and overcome some of those setbacks or obstacles or comments is really an important message. And one of the things that always struck me about the group and the content, and for my colleagues, I really would encourage you to embrace the program, is that these women are so generous, like Peggy, and talk about not just the skills in business, whether you wear shoulder pads or not, or a suit or a red dress, right? But not only the business sort of socialization and aspects and skills, but also about life skills and about personal choices. And it's really quite extraordinary that they are that generous. Lan, Fern, either of you, if you could speak to that portion of the program.
Well, before I do that, I just wanted to tell a little bit about the virtual program that we have, so that folks could get an idea of what the panel looks like. So the women tell their stories for 30 to 45 minutes, depending upon how much time we're given. And then we spend another 30 minutes in breakout rooms. So we're able to sit with 8 or 10 or 12 students in each breakout room, with one panelist, and the students are allowed to, can ask any questions they want of those panelists. That's our general format. We can be more or less flexible on that format. But one thing that we're not flexible on is we're not flexible on our message. All of our panelists are women, and that's important. It's an important part of our program. But you ask about the personal stories. The personal stories, they address work-life balance, they address risk-taking, and they get real, because sometimes risks work out and sometimes risks, they fail. But even from a failure comes a learning. And that's what our panelists share. They talk about taking a step back in their career in order to prepare themselves to take 2 steps forward. And in preparation of this panel, what I had done was I went through the surveys that we got from the students about the program. And if I had a moment, I'd just like to share some of the comments, because I reading them just inspired me even more to know that we're on the right track and we're doing the right thing.
Please do share, please.
Okay, so be confident. Think about your personal goals. Take a risk. Consider job opportunities that may not be the exact fit, but offer an opportunity to learn and grow. Ask questions. There were a number of people that had written that they were always afraid to ask questions. Get involved, ask for feedback, and work past your job description. Do the job you want without actually having it. Do that job before you have the title. Network. Stay in contact with your connections. Evaluate how you want to address work-life balance. You can negotiate a salary and you can ask for a raise. Things go wrong and you will make mistakes, but it's not the mistake, it's how you handle it. Now I know there are so many more opportunities in hospitality. I think I want to try asset management. I never considered that before. I'm going to take some design classes to augment my degree in hospitality. I just found these so inspiring, because this is real life experience that you don't get in the classroom.
And I think I know my colleagues, many of you will share this sentiment. We have so many high achieving students who are afraid to take risks because they don't want to fail. And we have to find ways, and our job as educators is we're always correcting them. I mean, we do like to give them positive feedback, but we take points off when they get an answer wrong, right? And so it's great for them, our students, to hear from successful women like yourself that getting, an answer wrong on a test is not a life-defining moment and they can move on. But then there are also other challenges. I want to throw a question out to Lan about Lan, there's different ways to bring the program to our universities and our colleges. There's the special event way, and then there's embedding it in a class. Can you talk a little bit about some of the diversity that our programs have taken, and what fits? We want to work best with all of our CHRIE members here to bring the best program to them, because the message is what is important.
Absolutely, happy to. So, it all really starts with having a contact at the school, having a school host, as we call it, for me to work with. And, it sometimes takes me a little bit to find the right person, but once we have someone that we can work with, what I try to do is talk with them about how their classes are set up, how the school is set up, and what's the best format in order to bring it to their school. And I know we've got a few of our partner schools and school hosts that I've been partnering with on the call today. So, and it depends, we're actually fairly flexible in the COVID-19 world, we've been doing mostly 75-minute webinars, as Fern had mentioned. And we can shorten that if we need to bring it into, you know, the time limit. If it's a classroom, if it's an hour class, for example, we can try and compress it a little bit. And then we've also had you know, some schools that wanted to have it be more broadly marketed to students. We're working on something right now for a parents and family weekend. So that will be a much larger audience, in which case we'll adjust the program and we probably won't have breakouts in that case. So it's really more a collaboration with the school to see what will work best for them, if it's a classroom setting or if it's broader with you know, more just Q&A with the broader group. And, you know, and one of the things we do is because we set up the Zoom call and we manage the Zoom and we manage the breakout sessions as well, we're also able to provide a list of attendees. So if a professor would like to give credit for attending the program, we also have the ability to provide that as well. So that's another option.
Well, that's terrific. I know, Fern, you know, the blessing part of, and the silver linings, as I said earlier today, the silver linings to a virtual working these days has been to be able to expand the relationships and the role models to the volunteers that are willing to participate. Can you speak a little bit about the balance of maybe having an alum from a program and then having the diversity of pathways? For instance, when I piloted our program at Penn State, I was able to bring a woman who was a GM, someone who was on the franchise and brand side, and then an owner operator and a regional VP, which was a little, each had a different segment that they could show. Talk a little bit about the panel makeup and how you partner with schools to make that work.
Okay, again, our panels are tailored for the school. What we try to do is we try to reflect diversity in our panels. And many times we'll ask the schools to provide us with the socio-demographic mix of their students so that the students can see people like themselves in these senior positions. We try and select a variety of career paths to showcase, just as you described. And we often, you know, try to match alumni with the university. If there is a woman alum that you might want to invite, we welcome the opportunity to consider them as a panelist. We currently have a wish list of nearly 1,000 women in hospitality. And I do have to tell you that the panelists love doing this almost as much as the students. I know that you experience that, Donna, but our panelists, the first thing that they say when we approach them is, oh my goodness, I wish there was something like this when I went to school. They love.
So true. I was lucky enough to have the Peggy Bergs and the Lori Rallies of the world. So you're absolutely right. So again, to my colleagues and partners in education, if you have not yet scheduled for this semester, you know, do reach out to Lan and thank you, Fern. That is such a good point.
So and you know what else the panelists get out of it? They get an opportunity. They love this format because it takes it just takes the preparation of them to remember the stories that they want to tell. The hardest part is to make those stories short and to the point, because you get up there and you start telling a story, it can take some time. But what it also does is it gives these women an opportunity to be on stage. Peggy mentioned earlier, it's rare that you get to see women in speaking positions at these large conferences. And so the practice for them doesn't come easy. So this allows them to practice their speaking skills and to begin to push to get those positions on panels, to feel more confident about it. They're often not invited to speak because they aren't visible, and they aren't visible because they aren't asked to speak. So it's a catch-22.
That is terrific. You know, we are all, as I mentioned, all works in progress progress. So it's an opportunity for us to give an opportunity for young women leaders. And right before, I want to just advance a slide here, making sure that here's some of the universities that have already done or are scheduled to do this semester. I would like to encourage, and Fern, a really good point, to give more of our panelists opportunities that each semester you can invite different women from the Castell College database and your alumni to be on a panel a different semester. And I do want to do one thing. I want to stop sharing my screen in a moment so that our colleagues can really talk to you and ask more questions. But I want to throw this back to Peggy briefly to talk about, Peggy, how can we support women in mid-career to advance into a Castell project cohort? Fern and Lan are leading the charge to change the message earlier. And the Castell project, I know I reached out to a bunch of alums from our School of Hospitality Management here to recommend them to consider it. What advice could you give our colleagues in education about nominating women to the Castell project?
So for our leadership development program, these are all women in mid-career, because there's this time when women's careers do this and we need them not to do that. That's where Castell program comes in. Every woman in the program is nominated by someone in their company or by a mentor to attend. But we also welcome just hearing from women who are in mid-career and need to talk about it, need a little encouragement, want to talk to somebody about what next steps are, have run into something that's kind of snagging them. I can't tell you how many times someone like that has been referred to me, and we pick up the phone, we talk about it a while. And at Castell, for the women who've been through the leadership program, we provide some ongoing virtual programming. And very commonly when there's somebody who just calls me to talk about whatever they're dealing with in their career, we invite them to become a regular part of that virtual programming so they can connect with other women and they can connect with the training and the information that we push out there on a fairly regular basis. So we'd be happy to talk to women that are your alumni and that you send our way.
Well, I thank you for that. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to Fern, Lan, and Peggy. And I also want to make sure that all of our colleagues get to ask you directly something that's on their mind. Because this is a little different today, folks, you can unmute yourself. Joy and I will do our best to try to manage our 40 or so participants here. If you could take yourself off of mute and pose your question to the specific panelist that you have in mind, that would help. We're trying this new because we want to be encouraging. Jean Hertzman, you have your hand raised. She used the Zoom participant hand raise part. We will, if you would unmute and ask your question.
Hi, everyone. Great to see such a good crowd here. And as I think one of their most recent Castell College new programs, I just want to give a rousing endorsement. We had a Castell College program here at NMSU about a month ago, actually I think just exactly a month ago, and it was wonderful. The students, we have a relatively small group that the students appreciated so much, sharing the knowledge, getting exposure to such high level people, and really hearing from their heart their experiences, because that was what a lot of the conversation was, as far as how they got to where they were and the changes during COVID-19. And I think they will remember it for a long time, and we definitely want to plan one for next semester. I think it's a type of thing that once the students that have participated in it tell their friends about it, it can only grow. And it was such an opportunity, because it would have been difficult even under regular circumstances, to get people to come see our beautiful Oregon mountains in Las Cruces for the day. And so, having it virtually was definitely an opportunity for us. But as far as a question goes, when they mentioned doing one for the family and things at Penn State, I also triggered something of, I don't see it as actually being a panel discussion, but even taking things down a notch and maybe having Castell do a short video or something of some of their participants that we could take down to the high school level. It's so hard to convince high school students to get into the industry, and that, to see more of the opportunities other than just the line positions. So, maybe if there was some kind of promotional video about the opportunities and the diversity in the industry.
Dean, I will let my colleagues share with you that, yes, for Fern or Lan, that is on the agenda. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
just
without a doubt.
appreciate everything you all do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I want to make sure that any of those folks who haven't currently included this in their course per se, I would encourage you, and one of the things we're going to be doing differently here at Penn State is doing it as a special event. There are a number of instructors who are adding this as a part of the curriculum, but in different assignments, whether you're one that gives extra credit or not, or is incorporating it into an assignment, because that is going to allow us to test and draw from different year levels, etc. So Deanne, I see that you have your unmute button off, so why don't you pose your question to one of our panelists?
Greetings, everyone. This is a fantastic program, and I'm really sorry that I didn't hear about it before.
Well, that's why we're bringing it to CHRIE members, Deanne. Yay!
Absolutely, and I'm here with a diversity question. I work at an HBCU. I see no representation for my students to look up to. What is your take on that, and how do you plan, if at all, to incorporate a wider, diverse set of perspectives?
Go ahead, Lan.
Yeah, good morning. Very nice to meet you. We actually have a couple things that we are doing. One of the things that we have made a commitment to is that our panelists, for each panel that we do, we would have at least one person of color on the panels. It might be more just depending on the school, just trying to mirror somewhat the school's demographics. But the other piece of it is, and you mentioned the HBCUs, it's something that we've been talking about a lot this semester. And actually, I had been trying to understand which of the HBCUs actually have a hospitality program. And I started with the A's, and there's 100 HBCUs. For anyone who doesn't realize that, I started with the A's, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be a really long task. But I was just recently made aware of that there is a consortium of hospitality HBCUs. And so I just found that out actually this week, or maybe it was last week. They're all blending in COVID world. And my plan was actually to reach out to the president of that consortium to, talk about the best way to reach out to the HBCUs. And, we would love to be able to bring Castell College to at least 3 to 5 HBCUs next semester in the spring. So that's one of the goals that I've set for myself, to try and accomplish that and proactively see what we can do.
Thank you, Lan. Deanne, if I can add to what Lan, we talk about this a lot, and we use our personal connections to build the database to be more diverse in all ways. And one of the motivations for myself and CHRIE leadership to bring this to our CHRIE members is to partner. Not just to bring the program to our students, but to engage our alumni who can be more representative and who can build our database to talk to the important issues and be representative. So if you have some good alum and suggestions as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are 16 HBCU schools, just to give you some facts, with hospitality
Wonderful.
as a focus area. I am a president emeritus of that group.
Oh,
So now you
wonderful.
have my contact. As
Yes,
well.
thank you. Yes, I'd love to connect with you. Absolutely.
This is absolutely fantastic. Deanne, cannot thank you enough. That is what CHRIE is all about. I am hopeful that we can continue the conversation. I'm going to throw it over to Joy. Joy, if you could offer or add, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so grateful to you for this. This is amazing, and it will be so great if we can all bring this into our schools and to our students. You know, I'm sitting here thinking about the faculty who are on this call and, you know, what impact we might have post, you know, one of your sessions with our students. And so, you know, I feel that perhaps the faculty could also sort of drive home some of the initiatives that you put forth to the students. So anyway, we thank you for that. Donna, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure that Nick, if you wanted to jump in here, and especially in terms of what, I'm glad that women are leading the initiative, but I know you might want to make a comment about some of the others.
No, I think everything else, this was a wonderful conversation. I think this speaks to the larger kind of goal, and Joy, you can echo this, that, you know, we want to try to create as many value adds as possible. I mean, we are truly an international association. The common misconception that people have is that we're very North American centric. And the reality of it is that we've got great members in Europe. We've got great members all throughout the Asia Pacific region, and anything that we can do, whether it's a 1 hour Zoom webinar like this, or something that's more in depth and showcasing research about diversity issues and things related to leadership, we really want to do, and we're open to it. This is a really interesting time for CHRIE, and you know, we want to kind of take this to the next level and start creating value adds, particularly since we're meeting remotely. You know, this is the time of year, as Joy said in her initial comments, that we would all be in Aalborg, Denmark right now, networking face to face. And so the fact that we can all still kind of come virtually face to face like this is really special. So thank you to all of our panelists. Donna, thank you. Joy, thank you. This has been a really insightful conversation.
And before I conclude today, Brendan, I see that you have your unmuted yourself. So if you'd like to ask a parting question before we wrap up, please do so.
Well, thank you, Donna. Brendan Croner from School of Hospitality Management at Castell College, just outside Boston. I'd like to congratulate everyone who has organized this webinar. It's exceptionally inspiring. I'm a firm believer of female leadership in the industry, and our hospitality management program is predominantly female. And all of these young women in school today need all the help they can get to build their self-confidence and take that step forward, be the confident leaders that they will become. And I'm also the chapter advisor for Eta Sigma Delta at Endicott College. And we have our induction ceremony coming up, and I'll be introducing the Castell project to our new inductees. And the idea that's forming in my mind during this webinar would be that I would charge our chapter Eta Sigma Delta with leading a proposal to have the Castell project at Endicott College.
Thank you, Brendan. What a great idea. I want to shout out to Ruth O'Rourke for making sure all of our international hospitality and tourism honor society advisors knew about this call and were on the call. Eta Sigma Delta is such a great reflection of our industry. Thank you for that. And Ruth, if you wanted to add what Brendan said, we'll end with you.
Well, thank you, because I wasn't expecting to talk, so I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for all the panelists. As Brendan mentioned and gave kind of a leeway into Eta Sigma Delta, we're aligned obviously with our parent organization, CHRIE, And so we have our own initiative that starting to have the dialogue about diversity and inclusion. And so I believe that hopefully within, after we have our dialogue and all the approval process that goes into any kind of committee, and everyone who's a part of iCRIE knows what that happens before we can kind of start off and take off and launch any initiatives. But I'm hoping that maybe this is where we can kind of set our sights on for Castell to be part of ESD and having more conversations about that. I love it.
It's great.
Thanks. Thanks,
Thank you.
Ruth. Donna Albano, dear friend from Stockton, you waved. Did you want to add? And just saying hi.
Sorry, yes, just saying hi and congratulating Ruth.
Fantastic. I want to say this in conclusion. The PowerPoint and all of the contact information for Lan, for Peggy, and for Fern will be made available to not only you, but to our iCRIE members. And on the day that the Nobel Committee decided to award its prize in chemistry to 2 women, I think it's fitting that we took today as the day to kick off Castell College for all of iCRIE. Excellence, success. Thank you guys all for being here and also for being great partners. Peggy, you remain an inspiration. Fern and Lan, every time we do the work, I'm grateful to do it with you. Please, there's a huge database of folks. We can move the needle. We can make a difference. And so thank you all for participating everyone today. Have a beautiful October. We'll see you at the next seminar. Thank you all.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
Here.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, definitely. Thanks, everybody. Lan?